everybody? My name is Lily Wyss. I am a realtor with Living Room Realty here in Portland, Oregon, and I am here with Beth Imhoff of Academy Mortgage. If you want to introduce yourself quick.
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everyone. I'm super excited to be here and kick off this little Zoom session. Whether you're watching it live or recorded later, we're glad to have you and super excited to walk you through the ins and outs of home buying.
Awesome. Yeah, so we'll get started here. A little bit about myself first. I will go into the realtor side of things, and then Beth will go into the mortgage side of things, as that is our specialties. So I actually need to update this. I have been in the business for 5+ years at this point in selling real estate. Started at Keller Williams Realty. Now I am at Living Room Realty and loving it here. I've lived in Oregon for a long time and have loved helping people buy their own little slice of Oregon. I have experience working with both buyers and sellers and really enjoy both sides of the process. I feel that it helps my clients in having insights into what the other side might be thinking, how we can strategize and negotiate. I am heavily on social media. It might be where you found me. I've won a few awards for that and love educating buyers over on Instagram and YouTube mainly, but you can find me elsewhere as well. Home buying is a deeply personal process, and it's something that I enjoy really educating people on. And so, yeah, let's get right into it. And we'll go into a little bit about the home buying process, what you can expect. This is obviously going to be just more of a general overview. If you want to meet with us and kind of go deep dive into your personal needs, what you're looking for, we've in the past done these presentations and people have showed up wanting to learn more about the condo business, and that buying a condo is very different than a residential single family home. So we can do that with you one-on-one, but this should give you a general idea of what to look for and kind of get you excited, learning more about the process, feeling empowered of what you need to know to buy a home. All right.
And it's never too early to reach out. I'll just say that. I know we talk about that all the time, but it's like years down, like if you don't think you're ready for 3 years or 5 years, like let's talk about it right now because there's so much to know and to do and prepare.
Oh, yeah. So, and we always say too, I remember a friend, like a close friend of mine, emailed me a year ago, like, hey, or texted me, hey, I want to buy a house. And, she was like, for right now, though, it's going to be a while. So I'll just Google things. I don't want to bother you. And I was like, no, don't Google things, but definitely don't rely on that. We are here to help, even if it's 3-5 years down the road. I've done buyer consults for people that are like nowhere near buying.
Yeah. And I think it makes the process easier when they're talking to us early. I mean, this, like just, it makes our job easier. It makes their experience better if it's just like super good communication early on.
So true. I love that. Yeah. And then, that's kind of even just coming here and doing something like this is going to help you so much in understanding what it's going to take to get you to where you want to be and kind of, give you that excitement level that you can come and talk with us. So we'll be here for you. And we'll get right into it. So for the process, typically when I do a buyer consult with somebody, I will share with them this fantastic buying wheel. This kind of goes over the basic overview of what is in the process of buying a home. So as we go through it, the first part everybody is most excited to do is the home search. Before we go there, Beth is going to talk more about this when it comes to her side. But typically, before we step into a home, there is a good amount of stuff we have to do first to make sure you are prepared. As fun as it is to go and view homes, when you start looking at your 15th, 20th home, it gets a lot less fun, a lot more tiring. A lot of emotions can get involved. I just was in that process with somebody that they're like, all right, we've seen a good amount of homes. This is, during the transition of the market, obviously too, which aided to this. They were ready to find their place. And so the best thing we could do is prepare you ahead of time. So when it comes to us on the real estate side or realtor side of things, this is really digging into what you need in a property, what you don't want in a property, and kind of finding those areas that you are going to be a little bit more flexible on. So say you're someone who just like must have a garage because you have a bunch of snow gear, just thinking of a particular person I worked with recently, and you're like, I don't want it in my house, so we must have this. But then you're also like, hey, we prefer to have hardwood floors, but if a house has carpet, we can also deal with that and fix that ourselves. So really getting to know that for you, for your realtor, and anybody you're buying a home with. I find for couples, the people that have the most success are the ones that communicate their needs with each other early on. And, we'll also learn more throughout the process. So don't feel like you have to have everything figured out, but it is helpful to have a basis to go off of. And that's where I also come in, where I'll give you a bunch of different worksheets. We'll talk together on Zoom and really, really dial in what it is that you want. So when you do start looking at homes, you can just jump right in and feel like you know exactly what you're doing. And it really helps that we've all had that communication. And then one other thing you can do, so for a lot of times, we'll work with people that aren't from the area or are moving back to the area. Touring areas that might be of interest to you, or ones that we might suggest to you, is a really good thing to do prior to looking at homes as well. So I have a bunch of Google restaurant recommendations I can send your way to go and check out those areas and get a feel for them. You could even go to a few open houses to get an idea of what areas work for you, what are the type of homes in those areas. Really will help. That way, before you really start to get serious, you have some idea of what you're looking for and you feel like you have that plan. And then the next part, which Beth will go into more, is before we step into a house, the most essential thing that you should do is get pre-approved for a home loan. So before we can do anything, you will need to have your loan pre-approval letter, which Beth is incredible and help you through the process. It might sound scary, but it really isn't that bad. And we'll need that in order for us to go and see some properties. So that's going to be the most important part. Once you have that letter, that is when we can start the search. So you'll have that letter in hand, we'll talk, we'll probably already have, especially in a market like right now where homes are sitting a little bit longer, you probably will have a list of a few that you want to go and see. We'll see what comes up over the weekend. Usually Thursday and Friday are the most popular days that homes get put on the market. We'll start that search. I will schedule the showings for you. And then we'll go into your properties. On average, people always want to know, how many homes do I typically have to see before I find the one I love? Again, it really depends on how particular you are, but also how prepared you are. I have clients that are like, we want this type of house in this area. It happens sometimes to be a less competitive situation in terms of who else wants those homes, and we can go out and buy. I've literally helped people buy the first house they've seen. So that's a possibility, or it could take you, as I said before, 15 to 20, depending on how also competitive the market is in the type of home and area you want to buy. But typically we try and kind of stay within that target range. And that's, again, due to strategy. After you find a home you really like, that is when we write an offer. That is all done online. It's a super easy process. I'll ahead of time send you a copy of what the 11-page document looks like for writing your offer. I fill all that in for you. You review it, you sign it, and we send it off to the other side. And then let's say you have your offer and we're writing it all out. These are the areas that we have to talk about in terms of the financials. So when we start writing your offer is, when we kind of really get into the nitty gritty. Purchase price is something you're going to have a good idea of already. So when you talk with that, especially in a market like right now where we have higher interest rates, is a really good idea to not only know what you can afford in a home, but what is actually going to be comfortable for you in a monthly payment. Mm-hmm. So coming up with, you're like,
100%.
Exactly. Coming up with that is going to be hugely important, because you might get pre-approved for $850 and that's super cool, but then realize the payment for that is just going to be super uncomfortable for you. So we don't even want to go look at a house at that price, because we don't want you to get excited about something that's not going to be comfortable, because that's what's going to be most important, especially in a market where things can be a little tight for people. So you'll have an idea of your purchase price. And when it comes to a particular home, I can help you dictate what the best price will be in order to win that property, and also that it makes sense with the comparable properties in that neighborhood. Earnest money is basically, we kind of call this like your deposit for the transaction. So your down payment that we'll talk about in a second, but your earnest money is basically your deposit telling the seller, hey, I'm going to put this amount of money into the transaction to show that I have skin in the game, that I have the finances needed, and to show that you are serious. Earnest money is typically going to be about 1% of the purchase price. So if you're buying a house at $800,000, it's going to be $8,000 that you are going to give to the title company, which is a third party helping us all with the transaction. And that money sits there. It does go towards your other costs at the end. So it's not an added cost necessarily, but you do want to keep in mind that it will be needed in the beginning of the transaction. So you want to have that money available when you start your home search. And then the other two that are super important when it comes to costs are your closing costs and your down payment. Beth can talk a little bit more about that because that's kind of more her area of expertise. But you do want to keep in mind that your down payment isn't the only cost you pay for. A lot of time I'll meet with a buyer and they'll say, I have this amount of money for our down payment, and being in the industry as long as I have, I'll say, amazing. Just want to check, does that mean you also have additional funds for your closing costs, things of that nature? You know, I'll talk in a second about inspections and appraisal. And sometimes they'll be like, oh no, that's my total funds, which is great. We just want to make that distinction because there are going to be other costs that you do have to take on. The other two things you want to think of are inspections and appraisal. So when we get under contract on a house, typically we're going to have 10 business days to complete inspections on the property you're trying to buy. It's a great time. You know, every inspector is human. They're not going to catch everything, but it's a great time for them to give you a general overview of the house and its condition. Typical costs for that are going to run you about $750 to $1,000 based on the amount of inspections you do. We can talk more one-on-one on what those are, because if you're going to be buying a single family house versus a condo, they're going to differ. What the area of, you know, town you're going to be buying in. Sold a house recently in Oregon City that required a lot more inspections because it was rural. We had, you know, a septic tank, things of those nature. So it can differ, but typically you're going to want to have about $750 to $1,000 on hand for those inspections. Again, it can be a little bit more expensive though, based on the scenario. And then this one, Beth will also talk more on, is appraisal. So appraisal, typically we try and have that happen after inspections. You know, it is the appraiser is going to come in and appraise the value of the home. That is something you are the one to pay for. Costs can depend based on the demand, but Beth can talk a little bit about that when it comes to it. So most of this, the first, you know, things on the left side are the things that are going to be included in your offer. So we'll kind of have those dictated as we create your contract. All right, so let's say we write your amazing offer, we have everything beautifully written, and you get under contract on your home. Yay, it's amazing. So with that comes a lot of exciting stuff. So disclosures. So this is where the seller is, you know, we have the seller's disclosures and a few other disclosures included. These are the items that the seller is going to give you, and it's their opportunity to tell you their known history of the property. So, you know, if there was any time there was a leak in the roof, this is their opportunity to tell you when that happened, if they got it repaired, has the issue been solved, have there been any future leaks, anything of that nature. This kind of coincides with the home inspections that we talked about a little bit earlier. So if a seller tells us, hey, there was water in the basement, it's a great idea. I can come to the inspector, tell them about that, and they're already going to look for those things, but they can take a little bit of a closer look. With inspections, as I mentioned, this is going to be a really good opportunity for you to learn a lot about the house. Anything, for you that's going to feel uncomfortable, anything we want to work through with the seller. And basically with the inspections, I'll say quickly, So once you have the inspections, typically we'll get the report back. And this is our time to really go through it together. We'll talk with the inspector, we'll talk with each other, and say, what are the things that within the house you want to get repaired? What are the things that you need to keep up with over time? And frankly, is there anything that's just too uncomfortable for you that you may not want to buy this house? If that all happens, what we'll do is we'll talk with some contractors, get an idea of the cost of certain repairs, what that will take. And once we have all the information we need, we'll go and negotiate repairs with the seller. So if it's a case where there are some pretty major repairs, that's when we can go into negotiation. Typically, when we talk about repairs, it's going to be major health and safety issues. So an inspector might tell you, oh, there's a small leak in the plumbing in the kitchen, but also there's a break in the sewer line. In that case, based on the negotiations, we can kind of decide, well, we're going to focus on this bigger item. Maybe you're going to take care of this yourself, kind of dictate what's going to be most important. A lot of the time, when it comes to negotiating repairs, you have about 3 or 4 options. So you can ask for the seller to repair something for you, which is a really good option if it's a major repair that could have a variance in cost once the work gets done. So as I said, a sewer repair, which can be a lot of money. Only issue with that is if you want the work to be done to your standard, sometimes it can be best to get that work done yourself, because for them, they're just going to try and get it done, get it done basically. Then you can also do, if you want to take something on yourself, is you can ask for a closing credit. So I'll go to Beth and say, hey, how much money do we have in closing costs? Because you can't just get money from a seller. You have to get it through closing costs. So if she says, okay, we have $8,000 that you can ask for in closing costs, we will request that money from the seller or the amount needed to do said repair. Let's say you get a bid for some electrical work for $4,000. We go to the seller, we say, hey, we're happy with the house, except we need $4,000 to take on this electrical repair. We get that money from them. We, at closing, you get this credit of $4,000. Basically what that is instead of you paying that added $4,000 of your closing costs, the seller pays it. That way you can hold the cash you already had for closing. That might sound a little convoluted. Again, this is something that we can go in more detail if we're talking one-on-one. And it comes up a lot as we're talking negotiations. This stuff will come up again and again too.
Yep.
And then, so once we've negotiated your repairs, I'll say this is the time. We're not going to get too excited yet. We're not going to celebrate yet because we do have to get through some other stuff. Usually we wait until I actually hand those keys over to you, but it is a time to have a little bit of a sigh of relief, because it can be probably, I think Beth, you would agree, the time where things can usually go south the most. So
for sure.
Getting through repairs is the best. And then after, we do all the repairs is when appraisal happens. If we get through appraisal, the, appraiser says the house is valued at where we said it was. That's kind of the other area that can come up the most. There'll be a bunch of other paperwork, a bunch of other things to take care of. But once we get through that, that is actually when you can go to the closing table, sign on your property, and get your keys. Obviously, we kind of skimmed over a lot of stuff there, but through all of that, you'll get through the whole process and you actually get keys to the home of your dreams. One thing people ask a lot too is how long does all of this take? So a typical transaction is going to be about 30 days. That can depend a little bit based on timelines. Sometimes it'll be 35, 45 days. Ideally, you want to stay within that range to stay competitive, keep things happy with the seller. And it's just the typical amount of time that it takes the loan side of things to get you to the closing table.
Yeah. And I'll also say, think ahead for timelines. Like Lily, when we were talking about years down the road, and that's great. Right. If you are years out, we would love to talk to you. But at the same time, like if your lease is up in April and we're chatting right now towards the end of the year, December, like April's not a lot of time. Like if your lease is up in April and you want to not renew, you want to be in a property of your own and start to pay your own mortgage, not your landlord's. Now's the time to be applying. Like certainly. It's not January, it's not February. It's like right now, because it can take some time to get things in place. So
true.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's a helpful thing. You might have mentioned that too, where, people will think like, okay, I want to match it up perfectly. Often, you're not paying your mortgage right away. There are certain things you can do that, it's pretty rare that you can match things, especially if you're in a rental perfectly, because the house of your dreams might not come up right away. All of those things. So yeah, that's where talking with us is super helpful. Because as you said, if you're buying this spring, we should realistically start talking now to build you up for success. If you called us in the spring and we need to get things going and find you that dream home within 2 weeks, we can do that too. But if you want to have the best rate of success, we highly recommend talking to us as early as possible. You're not wasting our time by doing so. It is helpful for everybody. That way we can also start sending you great information about the market, educating you in any way we can. That way you come into it super, super confident.
Yeah.
And then, that's mostly on my side. That is the general overview of the home buying process. If you want to learn more from me, I'm happy to meet with you one-on-one. I also, when we do so, will send you over our buyer strategy guide full of a bunch of information on the home buying process and gives you some opportunities to tell me a little bit about what you're looking for in a home. This will be just more of a general overview. We'll go kind of more into what the deep dive of what you're looking for in a home is, but this will just give you let you put in the basics of your information. That way we can really hone in and I can talk about the market from the lens of the specific type of home you're looking for. So it's a really, really good resource that I'd love to send your way. And then I mentioned before social media. this is my favorite area to educate people. So if you are at all interested in learning more about the home buying process, you're here. So I'm assuming you will be. You can go and follow me on Instagram at Lily Ray Residential. Also, YouTube just put out handles. So you can also follow me on YouTube at Lily Ray Residential. And yeah, I'd love to see you over there as well. And then we'll take some questions at the end. But for now, I'm going to hand you over to Beth and let her tell you all about the loan side of things. So
I know,
away, Beth.
I know. The side that people usually don't like to start by talking about their money and their finances and their credit score, but it's super important. So
it is. It's a really good one. Yeah.
I also noticed, Lily, you have to update your Instagram little screenshot because you're well over that number now. So
true. Good point. I know there's a few things on this. I'm like, oh, I got to update that.
I know.
Some exciting stuff is happening.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm super excited to be here. Beth Imhoff with Academy Mortgage. I've been in the industry. I think that number's old for me too. I want to say it's over 8 years now. Long enough to forget is the point, but love what I do. Just really enjoy working, especially with first-time home buyers, as Lily does too. I mean, of course, we serve all kinds of buyers, but those are the ones where you really feel that connection and can hold their hand the whole way through. I personally got into the mortgage business many moons ago after I had a really bad experience with my first home loan. I was doing something else. I was in marketing, went to buy my first home and went to a big bank because I was like, oh, they know what they're doing. It's fine. They did not know what they were doing. It was not fine. And it was a mess. So 3 months after that, I was in the mortgage industry and learning the ropes and, learning how to help clients. So still love it. But yeah, I just, have a real heart for it and helping first-time home buyers. So that's me. Lily's going to be my Vanna White here and move my slides. Yeah. So Mortgages 101, you'll see this little document that I have here, the yays and nays. Don't worry about, retaining all of this right now. The print is very small. It's just a sample to show you, like, these are some of the things that we're going to be doing to kind of help, like, come alongside you, hold your hand the whole way, and like not let you make a misstep that's going to make your loan a little bit more tough. Almost everything in the mortgage world is fixable unless you quit your job or something like that. That's a toughie. Right. But the point is there's some things you can do to make it smoother. So that's what I'm aiming to set you up for. And these are good things to keep in mind. When I talk to a client, I'm like, put this on your fridge, have that right there in front of you. Think about these things, it's so easy. Right now we're during the holidays, but really any time of year. So just open up a store credit card. They make it seem so easy, but that affects your credit. It affects your debt to income ratio. It can affect your credit score. So all these things that to kind of think about that, may not be top of mind. Okay. Yeah. So pre-approval, this is super important. As Lily said, you'll probably get really excited and call your realtor first, call Lily, but she's going to send you right back to me and say, you need to get pre-approved. We want to make sure that you can buy the home that you're wanting to look at and that there's not going to be like some heartbreak, right? So what we're going to do in this process is, look at your assets. So do you have money saved up for the down payment and the closing costs? If not, that's okay. We're going to work on building that. It's what can you do to save money, or are you getting a family gift? Or, some people do tend to look at retirement accounts, withdraw or borrow against those funds. There's any number of ways that especially first-time home buyers come up with their what we call cash to close, which is the down payment and the closing costs. Often it's a hodgepodge of a couple of things because it's a decent amount of money and most people don't have that kind of sitting in their bank account. So we're going to talk about that, talk about allowable funds, all those things. We're going to talk about credit score. Again, how does that credit score look? Are there any blemishes in your history that we need to work on and we can rehab together? What are your monthly payments on student loans, car payments, all those things? Another thing that we'll talk about during this process is your income. Is it stable? Is it predictable? If you're self-employed, that's totally fine. We just have to review the tax returns and see how those look. There's almost always a way forward for everybody. It just is kind of a matter of time. So this is a great time for us to come together, look under the hood, really suss out any issues and make sure that once you get in contract, that there's not going to be any problems, because once in contract, you're going to have spent money. And so I'm going to protect your funds. I don't want you to pay earnest money or pay for appraisal or inspection if I don't know that we have a loan for you. Absolutely. So that's kind of the gist of that part. Yeah.
Yeah. And I will say quickly
sure.
too, never feel like you have to come fully prepared or in the best light when you come to talk with Beth. I'll talk with people that are like, oh, I'm not ready yet. I need to take care of this or that. Loan officers aren't there to judge where you are in your finances, or, you know, if you are, you know, perfectly ready yet. They're actually there to help you get where you need to be. So a lot of the time, you know, we'll have clients who maybe have something on their credit that they're, you know, concerned about, and you'll tell them, actually, it's not a super big deal. You can keep that. Let's focus on taking care of this other item in your finances. That way you're in a better spot. So I will just make that quick, you know, plea to that talk with Beth. Don't feel like you need to be in some particular place. She is there to help you through the process.
Yes, 100%. Thanks for bringing that up, Lily.
Of course. Yeah, always.
It's really just a big puzzle. And, you know, if the credit's less than ideal or the income or whatever, I'm just like, all right, we're going to, you know, this is a little challenge and we're going to work together and figure it out.
Right.
So no big deal. So pre-approval versus pre-qual, this is a big one. If you are Googling mortgage, first-time home buyer, buying a house, whatever, I promise you're going to start getting targeted ads from online lenders, big banks, all these people, right? And they're going to promise you the world, and it's going to look really attractive and really flashy. And like, is it too good to be true? Probably, right? But part of that process is if they say they can get you, you know, fully approved in 5 minutes, don't believe them. That's a pre-qual, a pre-qualification letter, which is different than having a human being, you know, me and my team of underwriters review all your documents, ask all the questions, go through the paces to make sure there's not going to be any issues down the line. So I often will, you know, have my files pre-underwritten, which means I collect the documents, I give you a pre-approval, and that's great. And I say, okay, you are pre-approved, go shop for houses. But in the meantime, I'm going to upgrade that pre-approval and just send it to the underwriter, which most lenders don't do until you're in contract. The reason I do that is I want that extra stamp of approval. So while you're searching for homes with Lily, I'm going to be getting the underwriting stamp of approval. And that way, when we, you know, go to a listing agent with our offer, we could say they're one step above pre-approved, they're underwriter approved. And it just makes everybody feel a lot better accepting that offer.
It's a huge benefit when you do that extra step for our clients. I've had listing agents, one, just be impressed with your level of work and, you know, showing that like, okay, they're ready on, you know, this loan company that the buyer is using clearly knows what they're doing. They're going to help the buyer actually get to the closing table. But yeah, having that extra step where they know they're been through underwriting makes the seller feel more comfortable that there's not going to be this added, you know, chance of a hiccup. So it's a really, really great thing to be able to have for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because once they're off the market, you know, if they have a financing, you know, failure, they have to go back on, people are going to wonder what's wrong with the property. Right. I mean, that just is inevitable what they think. So, yeah. So paperwork for days, I'm kind of poking fun at my side of things and all the things I ask you for. Every client is going to get a custom list, every client or couple or family or whatever the situation is. We have all sorts of people buying homes together these days. But the point is you get a custom list, and I'm only going to ask you for the things I know that I need. Some of them may be, you know, maybe cumbersome. If it seems like a lot, it just goes back to 2008 and making sure that everything is well verified, well documented. We're not putting people into homes that they can't afford. So it can feel like, you know, you're getting raked over the coals a little bit, but I always promise I'm going to hold your hand the whole way, and we're never going to ask you for something that we don't need. The flip side of this is I'm very thorough. So if I see something that is a potential issue, I'm going to suss that out ahead of time, because again, we don't want to get you in contract and then not have a loan for you at the end of the day. So
yeah, it's always for your benefit.
100%. Yeah. So that is pretty much all that I have. I'm also on Instagram. I aspire to be as good on social as Lily is. But
too.
Oh yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah. We try and share a lot of info there, just to make the process more approachable and fun, because I really do think it's fun. That's
yeah.
how I know I'm in the right line of work, is some people find it tedious, and I'm like, no, it can be fun to learn about your credit and the whys and all, all this whole side of things. So
Oh, for sure.
yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, we
I
will open
know.
it up here to questions in a second. I'm going to put us both on view here. But yeah, if you have any other, before we go into questions, just want to say again, if you have any questions for us in particular, that's a personal question for you, or yeah, you just want to do a deeper dive into this process, we will be here for you. You can always also just, come with us for any needs you have. You can call, text, email us. Frankly, you can DM us. I had a client once say that they were like, it was when they were first contacting us to work with us, and they were like, I was gonna DM you, but I didn't know if that was inappropriate, because I DM has like a different context now, and I was like, no, DM me, it's totally fine, it's great. So,
you're like, whatever, however you need to get a hold of us.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I should say too, because there's we will be sending this out later, so if you're watching the recording, know that we are accessible to you. Like, we love to talk to people about real estate, how they can build their wealth through that, and so we're always here to help.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, we'll head into questions, and yeah, it's great talking with everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.